Let's review the upper beginner level. So question number 1. So what the hell we got here today? So obviously it's the first time you came across a React challenge, and because of that, the syntax may be a bit confusing at the beginning. Yeah. So when talking about JavaScript, the engine running JavaScript questions is pretty basic. Is you got a function equals something. Yeah, it's pretty basic. However, in here we are using a very powerful testing environment. This is called Mocha. Yeah, we'll talk about testing within the next weeks. Yeah, but that's the actual way you test React components. Yeah? A lady that finished the last cohort went to a job interview a couple of weeks ago, and she had to deal with something similar. Yeah. So that syntax, even though I agree it's a bit weird the first time you come across it, is actually standard. I didn't make this up. Yeah. So this is based on proper tooling. So let's try to figure out what the hell is going on here. So we're expected to create a component called text, and the text should have an element. Can you tell me what that selector means? Input. So this is CSS, right? Remember specificity workshop yesterday? So if you don't remember it, probably you drank too much yesterday. So we got input tag, and what type of selector is this? Correct, Adam. So we got, what's the specificity associated to this selector? Wrong. Wrong. Say it again. Wrong. Correct, Panos. It's 11 because it's 1 because of the tag plus what's the specificity associated to the attribute selectors? Yeah, 11. Cool. So we got a selector with specificity 11, and then essentially this this element, which is an input field. You know, an input is where you type your details, enter your name, sexyboy19. Yeah? So that's an input. And then the input should have a value, so that's the text that you get out of the box by default, and then a placeholder. What is a placeholder, guys? Correct. You know, when you get an empty input, sometimes you get a grayed out text. Please enter your email, and as soon as you start typing, the placeholder disappears. Yeah, so that's a placeholder. Cool. So all right. So that's our component. We got it partially filled. So we just need to create an input text, an input tag. Yeah? Technically speaking, I can do input whatever. To me, I would like to try to optimize the number of DOM elements, the number of tags I got on my screen. Many companies struggle with the performance of the app because of the number of unnecessary divs they got. Yeah, I mean here you got only 1, but eventually if we had 2,000 divs, our app will perform slower. So you know what? Out. I don't care about it. So let's simply create an input. Type text. Remember to use double quotes according to Airbnb React guidelines. And then value equals, I don't remember, my first input exclamation mark, my first input exclamation mark, and then we just got a placeholder equals. You see that line is very long. That line is very long. The text editor is automatically soft wrapping my placeholder, so it's moving things around. I don't particularly like that. You know that line should be the shorter the better. So then I'm keeping 1 attribute per line because then my code becomes much more readable. I hope you agree with me. So the text is visible when input is blank. The text is visible when input is blank. Something like that. Let's see if it works. Did you skip it? Oh god, sorry about that, guys. I skipped it by accident. Let me then go to the end of the exercise and let me go back. Okay, my code is still here, so let's test it and see if it works. Oh, you see the problem? Yes, I misspelled the message. This text is visible, and I type the text is visible. Yeah, classic problems. Say again? You changed a lot, yeah? Let's see if I wrote it correctly. Yes, that's it.
Quite clever you were. I was trying to copy.
You were trying to copy it?
Yeah, it would be ideal if you could try to copy it.
Ideally, from what perspective?
Not to make mistakes.
Yeah, as Brima said, when you try to copy and paste, you get warnings. Yeah? You are not expected to do copy and paste. Yeah? Do you want to know why I'm not a big fan of doing copy and paste? Because when you do copy and paste, no, that's not my main reason. Sometimes you know what you're copying. For instance, maybe I want to move that line about, so I will copy it clearly. But the thing is, sometimes what you copy something from the internet. Let me give you my most beloved example about why copy and paste is a bad idea. I presented this example many times when I do conferences about JavaScript. So imagine that you're building an app and you are creating a sign-up journey, where you want users to sign up into your platform, email, password, you know that. And you want to validate if the email address is correct. Yeah? Please enter your email. Peter Smith. That's not a valid email, so we want to show an error. You get that point, right? Actually, as part of the Codity platform, probably you notice that we got a new sign-up journey. So if I show you sign up, something like that. Here you go. So let me go to mobile mode. Yeah, so this is the new, when you land on Codity, on the web, Android or iOS, you get the new homepage or the new sign up. Yeah, so you want to sign up, you click here, and then imagine that I don't got my details, so I start typing, and you see we got an error, like this email is not valid. As soon as your email is correct, the error is gone. Yeah? So there's nothing particularly exotic in this example. However, how do you validate your email? I want to create a function that receives a string and returns a boolean, true or false. True if the email is valid, false if it's invalid. So what the majority of developers do is they go to Google, JavaScript validate email. How to validate an email address in JavaScript? Yeah? Classic question. If I click on it, let's pay attention to the metadata. The question was originally asked almost 2 years ago. Yeah? Active 1 month ago, that means still ongoing. 4,000 developers have stated that, yeah, I want to know that. Yeah? So this is one of the most popular questions on the entire Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow platform is where you ask questions like this one. Yeah? So, all right, yeah. Is there a way to validate email expressions? And then someone, look at how many people has upvoted a solution. It's actually the approved one. Yeah? So someone said, yes, please copy and paste that thingy. Let me zoom it out to see it end to end. Yeah, so you see? And then you said, I don't care. You know what you do next, right? Copy, paste, and that's it. And then obviously do a couple of tests. Sexyboy@gmail.com, it works. Sexyboy without any ad, it complains. It works well. Yeah, and you are happy. You get drunk. All these things that developers do, right? Few months later, once your app starts, getting customers, goes to production, and you start making money and business out of it. Someone sends you an email saying, "Hey, I'm trying to sign up into your platform. I'm trying to sign up with my email, but your platform is telling me I cannot. What the hell? I got an email. That's my email. It's a valid email, but your platform tells me it's invalid." And you said, "What the hell?" You check his email or her email and say, "Oh, that's true. That's true. My algorithm is rejecting valid emails." And then you go to Google again. Of course, you go to Google and you search the same question, how to validate an email address, and you come across the same link. And then by the first time in your life, you decide to scroll down below or beyond the accepted answer to see what happened, because you're sure that it's not the first time that someone spotted the problem. So when you keep scrolling down, look at the first comment on the first solution. This regular expression eliminates valid in-used emails. Do not use. Yeah, and then you realize that that wasn't a good idea. Why? Because you copy and pasted that, you had obviously no idea what the hell are you doing that. Yeah, I tend to massively complain when I receive a test from a junior developer and I see that type of code. Because if you do that, I don't care what else you've done. When you come to the office, my first question will be, can you explain me that? Some developers, they have the ability to understand that. It's not my case, and it's probably not your case either. Yeah? So this is a black box. You don't want black boxes in your code. You are delegating the control of your app, very important part of your app, because this is where you get customers. Yeah? So this is nothing stupid, into something that you don't understand, and if it goes wrong, and eventually this goes wrong, you are fucked. Yeah? So then what do you do? What do you do? Then you scroll down, and then you say, all right, did someone manage to find the right answer? And then, wait a minute, let me find out. Here we go. Someone found a regular expression that actually solved the problem. Is that beautiful bit of Chinese code. Yeah? And then obviously you copy and paste and you replace the original one. But I hope you agree with me that you are creating a monster. Because if we were unable to understand the first bit, this one, obviously we will be unable to understand that bit. Yeah? So that's why doing copy-paste of code, to me, it's okay if you really understand what you are doing. But if you don't understand what the algorithms are doing, just don't do that. All right, so yeah, so that's okay. I don't think there is any question, right? I mean, that was pretty simple. Let me just quickly go through your code. So you see Panos, he did essentially the same thing, setting one attribute per line, looking really good. For Ian, the same thing, all good. The only thing is, as you can see, the div is unnecessary. You know, when you create a React component, there must be one single root element. If we had to add more tags like divs, label, paragraph, then it's okay. But if you got a single element, the div is unnecessary. You can get rid of it. So Adam, did Adam got any elegance warning?
Yeah.
What happened with the div?
Oh, columns. No, tabs.
Tabs, correct. Indentation is wrong. The input belongs to the div. Because of that, it should be indented, it should be moved to the right. Look at, for instance, what Ian said. Yeah? Div, and then inside of it, you see that code to me is much easier to read because I can quickly get an idea, get a feeling, a touch about the hierarchy of DOM elements. With Adam, it's slightly more complicated because it looks like input is a sibling of div. Well, it's not. Yeah? Daniel, interestingly enough, so he indented the input correctly, but then he got the problem with so he got two problems. The first one is, looks like he decided to move attributes to new line, which is fine, but the type to be completely clean should be moved to a new line. And also, remember, Daniel, to move the attributes one level to the right. Yeah. So with Ebrima, it's even worse because he's doing something a bit weird. So he's not indented the input. That's the first thing. But then he decided to add some sort of weird indentation on the attributes. Not sure if you can notice, but there is looks like there's one space here, yeah, which is breaking any single rule about how to indent things. Yeah. So just remember to indent it correctly with tabs. What about Minji? That doesn't look bad. The only issue is, as I reported with Daniel, I think the type should be moved here. Because then I hope you agree with me, if all the attributes are aligned, it might be easier to discover. Yeah? In this particular case, it's slightly more complicated to realize that you got the type. And one more thing, Minji. I'm not sure why you got the spaces surrounding the attributes. I know when you create a JavaScript variable,
Probably for JavaScript.
yes, that's correct. But something applying to JavaScript doesn't necessarily apply to HTML, and this is a good example. Also with the quotes. With JavaScript, we write single quotes. In HTML, we write double quotes. With the spacing, It's the same thing. When you create a variable, you put the spaces left and right in JavaScript, but you don't have spaces in HTML. Yep, so I think that's pretty much it. Do you have any question, guys? No?
The email
Yes.
example that you were giving.
Yes.
Isn't there a type within the input that is equal to email?
That's correct. That's correct, Daniel. Now in modern HTML, in HTML5, you got input type text, that's a classic. Input type password, that's a classic. But you got new types like input type number, where you can only type numbers, and then you can do input type email. But the problem with input type email is it's not enough, because input type email, I can start typing hello, and I can submit my form. So input type email will probably prevent me from typing invalid characters. Likewise, input type number, if you create input type number and I try to type character W, it won't type anything because W is invalid. But if I create an input type email and I start typing W, yeah, that's not valid, but then what? You need to validate with JavaScript. It's a bit complicated, but you need JavaScript to validate an email. And if not, just play with your conflicts and you will see. Cool, so that was question number 1. What about the second one? So, get the welcome message in 2 paragraphs. Oh, that was free sugar, guys. That was very simple, yeah? So, you expected to create a welcome component, and then the way this works is, so welcome.findP means we'll have how many paragraphs? 2. Well, the first one welcome, and the second one to React. Yeah, so that was very simple. So now, remember you can copy lines like doing Command Shift down. In this case, I'm copying it because I have full control of my code. I really know what I'm doing. Yeah. So to React, I think it's something like that. That's it. Yeah. I'm not even going to check your code. I don't think anybody did anything, special. Yeah.
I have a question about the tests. I've seen the word shallow.
Yes.
I was wondering what that.
Yes, that's a good question. So you remember when we have yesterday we explained how to create a component, and we said that a component can have another component, and that component can have another component. Essentially, you have a tree of components. So when you use shallow, that's a keyword as a method in React testing. Shallow means if you get a tree of components, we are going to only check the one that we provide here, challenge results. If challenge results is using another subcomponent, ignore it somehow. So why we do that? We do that for simplicity reasons. When there is a fire in summer in the mountains, they do like firewalls. A firewall. Actually, I'm not talking about IT. I'm talking about proper fire. If there is a fire in the mountains, so what they do is I struggle to explain that. They try to cut, not to cut the mountain, but they try to remove all the clay and remove part of the ground from the middle of the mountain. So once the fire attacks that part of the mountain, it will stop. So it won't progress. If there is, for instance, people living on the other side of the mountain, they should be protected. Like this is a proper firewall. Yeah. When talking about IT, yeah, it inherits the same principle. A firewall in IT is a way to control that something doesn't go beyond a certain point. Yeah. So when talking about using shallow, is creating some sort of firewall. Yeah. Imagine that challenge results is using another component called Brexit. So using shallow will not compile Brexit. So if there is any problem with Brexit, I don't care because I want to test only challenge results. Eventually, I will have another test to test the Brexit. Yeah, this is what we call unit testing. I want to test one component, not the whole hierarchy tree. Sometimes you will see other wording here. For instance, I think it's called render or mount. So definitely there are ways to compile the entire component tree. Yeah, depending on the scenario, we may want to do that or not. But at least on the most basic scenarios, we use shallow because we want to test one component. We don't care about the dependencies of that component. So what we got here? Interestingly enough, we start talking about properties. So how many properties the challenge results component receives? 1, correct, which is the scores. Yeah? What type of data the scores is? Array. That's correct, Panos. So on the right-hand side, oh, that's pretty much done already, right? So we've got challenge results, props. So we want to check if the average score is good enough, is above 50 or below 50, more or less. Yeah. Next week, I've scheduled, I think it's on Tuesday, 10:15, maybe, or no, Wednesday. Wednesday? Yes, on Wednesday. I've scheduled a workshop about using reduce. Yeah? Reduce is the most powerful method in JavaScript. So we'll talk about that next week. So for us, at the moment, it's a black box. I don't care how the hell JavaScript calculates the average. The only thing we need to do is to invoke the function. Yeah. So, you know, true equals true. That doesn't make any sense. We have to fix that bit. So the only thing we need to do is just to call the function get average. I think if it's greater or equal than 50, then well done. Else keep training. By the way, if it's the first time you came across, let me zoom it out a bit. There you go. If it's the first time you came across this structure, this is what we call a ternary operator. It's an if-else. Yeah? On the left-hand side, you got the condition. The condition is if the get average score is the score greater or equal than 50, and then look at the syntax, guys. Question mark means then, return, well done. The colon means else, exactly, if else. Yeah? So yeah, that's the easiest way to determine what you want to display, A or B, yeah? Ternary operator. So I think that should be it, right? So let's test it. Yep, that's it. Any questions? No? Easy, right? Question number 4. Interesting. So user displays first and last name details. How many props our component receives? How many? 2. Do you agree on that? Prima disagrees, and Ian disagrees as well. It's only 1. So the props are essentially how many key value pairs. We got a single key value pair. Yeah? There is only one equal symbol. There is one property, user. And what type of data user is? It's an object. I think it was you, Panos, correct me if I'm wrong, yesterday you were asking when do we use double curly braces?
Yes. Is that because I asked you yesterday, and then obviously I see it, and then I'm not seeing it. It's like it was a bit confused with it, because I was having trouble with it because at some place we didn't have to use it at all, and I was like.
So in here, user is an object. So the inner ones are obvious. We're passing an object. What type of the object is a JavaScript object? Remember, with React, every time you want to use JavaScript data inside of HTML, you have to surround it. That's why it's a bit confusing. That's why the double curly braces. The inner one.
Because you said the same thing to me yesterday.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, that's pretty much the idea, right? So and then what we got on the right hand side. Interesting. Map. On Tuesday, we'll talk about map versus for each. So map is the most popular method when dealing with React. So map takes an array of things and it returns an array of other things. So it goes one by one over all the elements, yeah, and it transforms them individually. Yeah, for instance, I got a list of fruits written in lowercase, apple, small a, small p, yeah, apple, orange, banana, all in lower cases, and I want to return the same array, but all the fruits written in capitals, in big, in upper cases, apple, orange, and banana. Yeah? So for this kind of scenarios, map is really useful. Also, there is another oddity here, which is object.keys. So what object.keys does? Let me present you an example. If I got a variable called user, name Peter, age 21, so object.keys of user will return an array that's important with all the keys as strings of the object. So what are the keys of the user object? Correct, name and age. So that's a very easy way to iterate over an object. We can easily iterate on arrays. We'll see that next week using multiple methods like map, like for each, like reduce, like find, like filter. There are multiple methods to iterate with arrays. But you can also, indirectly, you can iterate objects. How? First of all, you get the keys. So essentially, you are transforming your object into an array. And once it is an array, then we can do whatever we want with it. We can iterate using, for instance, map. So, does anybody know how to get the values of the object? I want to build an array with Peter and 21. Correct. Object.values, that's equivalent. Object.values will give you an array with the values. Okay? Even though that sounds pretty fundamental, object.values was just introduced in JavaScript in 2017. Okay? So it's a new method. Cool. So we got object.keysProps.user, and then look at the syntax. So we want to iterate over each key. So essentially name and age, for instance. So key, you see, map, we'll talk about that next week, but map will stop on every key. We'll stop here, and then we'll stop there. So it will run this piece of code twice. And then what do? So now we want to transform each key into an HTML element. We receive a key, name as a string, and we return an HTML element. And what information that HTML element contains? First of all, is a div. Is a div with the key itself. So we want to display something like that. We want to display name, yeah, that's the key, colon, and now we want to display the value associated to that key. So from a human point of view, that's what we want to display, name Peter. So does anybody know how can I access the value associated to that particular name key?
You have to take the square bracket outside, like change them to curly.
Like that? That sounds user.props. User.props.user?
No.
User.props.value?
I don't remember what's written on the.
It doesn't matter. You don't really need to. Well, okay, I'll show you. User.props.what?
Value, and then I think it was an integer.
Dot panos? No.
You want to get the Peter one?
I don't know. I want to solve the problem. So, all right. What will this algorithm return? Prima.
I don't know.
Why? Can you tell Panos why this algorithm will return an error?
It's not, there's no like, it's like, there's nothing there that's like, there, like, there's nothing that's used that's in that.
Right, the answer was right, but the explanation was a bit average. Yeah? So that will throw an error, you're right. But the reason is user. What is user? We don't have. Okay, wait a minute. So that was, I did that just for testing purposes. Yeah. So that's the code, obviously. So that will throw an error because user doesn't exist. So user exists as part of props. Props.user. Yeah. So that's why as Kaimi suggested, should be like that. Props.user. Okay? Props is an object containing all the data our component receives. What data are we receiving? User. Yeah? So props.user. And now the tricky part is what the hell that square bracket key means. That means when you do, let me give another example. Let player equals name Peter. To access the name of the player, you can do player.name. Yeah, of course. There is a different way of dealing with data, which is with the square bracket notation. You can do that. That's equivalent. And because you can pass some data, I can create a variable. So let my data equals name, and then of course I can pass here my data. Yeah. That's the way you can. That's the way you can dynamically fetch one property at a time on an object. Yeah. If that sounds confusing, please refer to JavaScript beginner training module objects, question number 3. We literally cover this particular use case scenario. Yeah? So that's the way you can dynamically get the value associated to that particular key. Yeah? So that data structure is very powerful because we managed to iterate over an object. First of all, transforming the object into an array of keys, and then for each key, we display a piece of HTML containing the key itself, name, age, email, whatever, and the value associated to that key. So let's see if it works.
I have a quick question.
Go for it.
I'm not understanding the line of code just above what we've written. So
Yep.
it says div plus name. So is iterating through each key,
Yes.
and then we're applying a class name of email?
Yes. Yes. So we receive, we have an array of keys, name and age, but we want to display that. So how do we display it? Thanks to map, we will do div class name detail, and then here name Peter, and likewise we'll have another div underneath with age 21, for instance. Yeah, that's what we are doing. We are transforming an array of strings into an array of HTML elements that will get displayed. Yep.
So inside that div, you have key equal.
That's a fantastic question. That was my next point. So there is an oddity. When working with React, when working with map, you always have to provide a special attribute on the root element of your return tag. Yeah? So what's the root element? That's the div. That's the root element that we are returning for each element on the array. You always have to provide a special attribute called key. If you don't do that, DevTools will vomit an error. And why is that? Because React needs a unique identifier associated to each element. Without that unique identifier, React will struggle displaying the things on the correct order. Okay? It's just a convention. When working with React, when working with map, always provide a special attribute called key. And what's the value? Whatever you want. But it needs to be something unique. It needs to be something that helps React to display the element correctly in the correct order.
So it only applies to map.
Only applies to, not only, it applies to any loop. Whenever you use a loop in React, you need it. It is true that 99% of the time you're going to create loops with map. Yeah, but it's not the only way to create loops with React.
So could we change key to Codiri?
That's a good question. Can we change key to Codiri? Correct. No, that will work only if you have one element. But as soon as you got two elements, that won't work because you will have two divs with the same identifier, with the same key. So React won't be able to differentiate them. So the keys have to be unique. Is the actual key we are passing here unique? Yes, because if you pay attention, what keys are we dealing with? First name and last name. They are different. If we scroll down, if we scroll to the top, we've got other keys, name and age. So the keys are different. Maybe you get confused with the naming because that's a bit confusing. You can rename it to Brexit. And then that should work. So that argument, we call it key because that's the key associated to each object. But that key here is something completely different. That key is a keyword. I cannot rename that to Brexit. That's wrong. Yeah? So you explicitly have to type KIY equals and then something unique.
User keys or something.
Say it again?
User keys or something more self-explanatory, I suppose. Because when I personally, when I see key, I mean, I don't know which one is.
Yeah, you know, I respect. Yeah, that's a good point. That's why I said if you feel it a bit confusing, you have to respect that key, but feel free to rename the Brexit with something else. Like, for instance, Daniel suggested user key. Fair enough. Whatever you want. Any questions? No? Let me check your code. That was question number 4. Question number 4. Where is it? Here we go. Question number 4. Yeah, I'm not expecting any magic here, right? Because essentially you just had to write one line of code. So Panos, Ian, Adam, Daniel, and Ebrima, and me. So everyone did pretty much the same thing. Yeah. So just keep practicing with that. On next week we'll obviously set up some examples, yeah, about how to use map in a real exercise. Anything else? No? So last question, number 5. What we got today in question number 5? Club tickets. Interesting. So we have a component called club tickets because we want to build an app to sell tickets about, you know, gigs or Fabric, Crazy Nights, whatever. So how many props the club tickets component receives? Just one, correct, the user. So we'll access to it as, how would you access the H? Props.user.h. Yeah, that's pretty much the idea. So depending on a few attributes, we'll decide whether the user is allowed to buy tickets or not. So what are the conditions? So first of all, if the user is at least 18 years old, the person is an adult, so yeah, go ahead, yeah, purchase. However, there is another scenario. If you are not an adult yet, if you are, for instance, 17 years old, but you want to join that club in the afternoon session, which is alcohol-free in theory, then that's fine. You can buy the ticket as well. Yeah? But however, if you are not 18 years old yet, and you want to buy tickets for the night session to watch David Guetta, so you cannot, yeah, because it's not alcohol-free. You get the idea, right? So there are different ways to solve this problem. I think this is a really good exercise. I would like to show you my favorite one, or probably the simplest way to solve the problem. I don't even, look, if you pay attention to the example, it doesn't even talk about divs, labels, paragraph. It's just a piece of plain text, purchase or sorry, not allowed. So I will keep it super simple. Look, return. I want to check positively. So first of all, if props.user.h is at least 18, then, you remember the ternary operator, then display purchased. Else, we also got a scenario. If you are less than 18 years old, but you want to join the afternoon session, that's okay. So then, look at what I'm going to do. Or what? Props.session. Cool. Props.user.session equal afternoon. Yeah. Else. So if one of these conditions is truthy, we'll talk about Boolean algebra within the next couple of weeks, and or the ancient Greeks. If I implies B doesn't mean B implies I, all these things. We'll talk about that. So if none of these conditions are satisfied, sorry, not allowed. I think something like that. Not now, not. So you can see how simple this algorithm is. Yeah? If either the user is at least 18 or he or she wants to get a ticket for the afternoon session, purchase. If not, sorry, not at all. Any questions? I hear some of you using the word destructuring, or maybe I didn't and it was just on my dreams, yeah? Let me present you a slightly better way of dealing with the problem. Whenever you create a React component, you are likely to write props.props.props. 2 million times, yeah? This is a good example. It's only twice, but props.user, yeah? I find it a bit exhausting, and it goes against readability. Props. It's a bit unnecessary. Thankfully, with modern JavaScript, you can destructure your arguments. This is one of the things that, regardless of how a job interview goes, it's very easy to learn. It is very easy to impress the employer by applying the following technique. I don't want to write the word props at all because I find it a bit unnecessary. I only using props to get the user, so I care about the user. So instead of passing props, I can inspect the content. Look at the syntax, guys. Square bracket, user. That's it. I want to access the details of props. What exactly I want to get? The user. So now, hope you agree with me? Now the code looks a bit cleaner.
I think it was part of one of the exercises.
Yep.
Do you have to put space, like,
Curly brace?
yeah?
Yes. Without the curly brace, that won't work.
I mean, like, you know how you start, like, curly brace and the space?
The space. No, the space is just an elegance thingy. I think the recommended way is with the space. Yeah, that's what we call the structuring. In other words, if you got a variable called, maybe take a variable called user with name, Peter, age 43. Of course, I can create another variable name equals user.name and let age equals user.age. Yeah, I can do that. Or I can replace these two ugly lines with something super cool, which is let, look, name, age equals user. The same thing. The way it works is, please go to the user, find a key called name, I got it. So assign the value associated to that key, Peter, to a new variable called name. And likewise, go again to the user object, find the key called age. Where is it? Here you go. It is. Assign the value associated to the key 43 to a new variable called age. That simplifies a lot the way you code. Yeah? So I will be very happy if you understand that. However, there is an even more extreme way to destructure your object. That's a bonus. Yeah? If you didn't really understood that, now you can stop looking at the screen because it's going to be just more confusing. So I told you before, I didn't want to write the word props because that was a bit confusing. Yeah? Props, why props? The only reason to use props is to access the user. But likewise, why do I care about the user object? I just care about the age of the session. So can I destructure property? Can I go one level down? Yeah, of course I can. Look, I can do user. This is super powerful. And now, age session. So I'm destructuring my object twice. And if I do that, boom, I'm sacrificing some readability on the first line, but however, I'm making the rest of my code much easier to learn. Imagine that because of whatever reason, I wanted to access the age 47 times. Yeah? Rather than typing props.user.age, 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 or even user.age, user.age 47 times. Now, age. See? So now the code is much simpler. You can see it still works.
I would like to read more about that.
Yep.
How can I do that?
Yeah. So you can go to Google and search object structuring JavaScript, and you'll find many articles, a that simple intro to object destructuring. I think that article is quite nice. So you see, this is pretty much the example I gave you before. So this guy is creating a person object, and then how does he access the first and the last name? First equal person dot first, last equal person dot last, or you see, you can destructure it in that way. So this is one of the things that it doesn't matter what the job interview is about. You will always have to create a function with an object, the majority of the time. Yeah? So if you work with React, you will always have to deal with similar problem. It would be okay to write props dot, but I hope you agree with me that if you follow this pattern, the employer will be extremely surprised positively. Once again, it's just these little details to put your balls on the table, to prove that your level is way above any other candidate. Yeah, because the majority of the junior developers, they don't know how to do it. Any questions? No? So let me have a look to your code. So first of all, you see Panos, he used ternary, which is perfect. He indented the code beautifully. So yeah, that's really good. That's really good. Say it again. You what?
I needed some help.
You need what? Whatever. Yeah, that's fine. The thing is, yeah, in real life, everyone needs help. Yeah, but the important thing is to have a good eventual result. That's really good. My only subtle concern is the expression is a bit extra complicated. Yeah, because he is having different statements. So if the session is the afternoon, purchase. Else, if age is about at least 18, purchase. Else, it's okay, but I just hope you agree with me, we could simplify a bit more like that. Yeah? Cool. Same thing for Marian, so for Ian. I may complain a bit about the double quotes, because remember in JavaScript, single quotes are the preferred way of coding. Also, Ian, you're missing a semicolon here. You got another warning. For Adam, apart from the missing semicolon, he got some warnings because of indentation. You see, you got the condition, plus user equals afternoon, then everything else should be moved to the right. Like for instance, look, Ian or Panos did. You see, that indentation is literally perfect. Actually, give me a second. No. Sorry, guys, I did something wrong. The indentation is not perfect. That's my fault. That's not perfect. And let me tell you why. The first line is perfect. The second line is perfect. But the third line...
You start on the same line. Yeah.
Correct, Panos. I didn't notice that. That line should be here. Because that's if else. If else are in the same hierarchical level. Yeah. So same thing for Ian. Purchase is perfect, but everything else should be moved one level to the left. Yeah? And interestingly enough, for Adam, it's on the other way around. Adam had to move purchase to the right. But moving purchase one level to the right will make it perfect, indentation-wise. Remember, guys, the semicolons. Yeah, so you see, I struggle a lot to understand Daniel's solution because of the lack of indentation. Yeah, I struggle to see the hierarchy of if-else. And also remember, Daniel, single quotes, remember the semicolon, all these things. With Ebrima, it's even worse because he's indenting on the other way around. He's extracting the content rather than, you see Ebrima? So that content should be moved to the right, not to the left. And also, please look after weird spacing. Yeah, why you got, I don't know, what's that? 3 spaces here. Yeah? So, here's details, guys. These details make a difference. And Minji, same problem. Yeah, that code should be to the left. So essentially, first of all, it's great. Everybody found the solution, fantastic. But no one really provided a perfect solution. Hopefully next time. Cool. It's literally 11. Any questions? No? So just to recap, on Monday, we will run a UI challenge. You are not going to run UI challenges that often because historically speaking, for our students, it's been much easier to be proficient with HTML and CSS. We'll do one challenge. Depending on how it goes, we'll do challenges about UI more or less often. We'll see. Yeah? And then on Friday, we'll do a JavaScript. Thank you very much.